Hi, everybody. Ed Lane here with Hometown Advisor Real Estate. I'm in Bellevue, Washington. We have agents all over the state, and I'm making this training available to other agents around the country because I want this information to be able to be disseminated to their clients and sphere of influence. We did a training today. That's why you see the date on there as yesterday's date. But we did a training yesterday about what is the main difference between the market today and its volatility and what was the market like in 2007 and 8. And I just wanted to share this content with you in case you might find it helpful for yourself and your family, or if you wanted to share it out to your clients and sphere, because I think the more we can get the word out, the less volatility or the less negative impact that this volatility is going to have. So I'm going to burn through kind of the cheerleading portions of our training yesterday because I really want to just get to the guts of the statistics that I shared. But in the end, Einstein's the one that said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. And I think we all as real estate brokers have a tremendous opportunity to be a resource to our clients and a source for hope. Not only information, but also hope and optimism. And I hope you take that position very seriously because it's really our duty to help in this sort of environment. I don't have to remind you what the stock market is doing, but I can point out that the stock market's doing it due to the uncertainty, right? Money flees stocks because they don't know what the future holds, and they move into bonds, which is more secure for them. That's what's going on. That's why you're seeing 4-digit moves on a daily basis, right? It plummets 2,000 points. The buyers come back in and they make it go up 1,000, and then they plummet 2,000 more. The reason is we're all human, right? And if you think about it, when the markets are going bananas like they are right now, what does it remind you of? Right? When's the last time we had that sort of volatility in the market? That sort of, deep dive in the markets was 2008, right? And so that is the most recent example that anyone has of what this market can do and cause. And as a result, as humans, we go, oh crap, my home's going to go down 30% in value. It's human nature, right? Just like if you're a parent, when your kid doesn't show up when they're supposed to, you think, oh man, they're in a ditch somewhere, right? You're not alone. You don't have to be a parent to have that instinct. And that's kind of what we do. But what our clients really need are answers, right? And what they really need is you. And so that's what this training is all about. We're going to talk about kind of the metrics of the economy. Last week in our training, we covered COVID-19 itself and in detail about how you avoid it, how you contract it, how it spreads, why it's called COVID-19, all that stuff. That training is available on my YouTube channel if you want to see it. It's really kind of boring and scary. So approach it with caution, I guess, right? But our training yesterday was all about restoring the advisor role that all of our agents should fill for their clients and their sphere, right? Knowledge is power, right? So what do the markets typically do when there's an epidemic or a pandemic, right? They go down. That's what happens every single time. In fact, SARS and Zika went down a lot. This time around, it's gone down even more. It's over 20% down. That's scary for people, right? But what do we know? We know that every time in these 5 instances that the market went down, whatever amount it went down, that it surged way back and beyond where it started to fall. And that's what's going to happen here. We just know it, right? We just have to be patient. What do the markets want, right? Why? It's volatile because it has uncertainty. What they want is they want to know that there's a plan that has a design that's going to get us to the outcome we want, right? Which is solving this virus and this outbreak. We need leadership. Right now, our leadership is spending too much time tweeting about how others aren't doing enough. We need people to take action. We need to take drastic action swiftly and have a plan, right? Hopefully we get that. Because once we have that, the markets don't need the coronavirus to be gone, eradicated, in order to restore confidence in the markets. What they do need to know is that there's a plan towards containment and solution, and we're taking steps in that direction. And right now we're like a rudderless ship, so that's why they're so volatile. Hopefully that changes. I actually tweeted a couple days ago to Mike Pence, that's the @VP handle you see, and Andrew Cuomo, which is the @Gov Cuomo. I said, Mike Pence, please talk to Andrew Cuomo about the immediate and emergent response that is needed for this historic medical emergency in our country. We need to convert vacant buildings, which are schools, into field hospitals with respiratory services. And we need to do it today. We need a plan, we need leadership, and we need action, right? I'm sure it fell on deaf ears, but I was fired up, so I tweeted. All right, so what can we learn from the past? Well, first thing you got to recognize is that your sphere of influence, your past clients and current clients are all thinking, man, here we go again. This is 2008 all over again, right? And it's understandable why, because that's the last recollection they have of this kind of volatility. What caused that volatility? Right? It's a really important thing to understand. What caused it was a collapse in the housing market. And that's a huge difference. This is medically induced, right? A collapse in the housing market affects 70% of all industries. This is a reaction to a virus. That's entirely different. So the uncertainty of a housing collapse can last a lot longer than the virus will take to solve and get abated. The other thing to remember in today's climate, we don't have subprime lending, right? There's a couple lenders experimenting with it, but it isn't rampant like it was, right? We didn't have, at least here in Seattle, we had 15.6% appreciation for 2 years in a row. That is unsustainable, and that is overheating, period. Your home goes up a third of its value in 2 years. That's crazy, right? Here, this time around, we're way better equipped to withstand the volatility and survive it, right? The other cool thing is we have the experience that we had in 2008. In 2008, quantitative easing was just an idea. It's an idea that worked. Quantitative easing prevented the Great Recession from becoming the second depression. It worked. And since then, we've used it 2 more times, and we're doing it right now, and they're calling it QE Part 4. And if you're not familiar with it, quantitative easing is the infusion of capital by the Fed into the markets. So the Fed announced at the end of last week they're going to buy $700 billion worth of treasuries. That's quantitative easing, right? So they've lowered rates, they have infused capital. And the cool thing about quantitative easing that we didn't really realize until we tried it in 08 is that it can actually be shut off the minute you don't need it anymore. Well, in a medical induced market, volatility, we're going to get ahead of the virus at some point. At that point, they can shut off quantitative easing. And what that does is that stops that sort of financial hangover that gets caused, right, by other actions that the government can take. Other actions like implementing job reform or implementing programs to put people back to work, or those sorts of things have an effect, and in most cases a good effect, but they take time to unravel when you don't need them anymore. That's the financial hangover that I'm talking about, right? With quantitative easing, they could stop buying treasuries tomorrow if they didn't need them anymore. So I don't know if you're familiar with Laurence Young, but he is the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. And this is his quote from just a few days ago. The monetary policy is the same one applied a decade ago during the Great Recession. The lowest rates combined with quantitative easing. This is an all-out measure to prevent a recession and fight the fear that is blanketing the country. It is the right policy since the policy can easily be reversed should a vaccine be discovered and the virus goes away. During the last recession, and this is the quote I really want you to tune in on, during the last recession, real estate was on wobbly ground with loose lending and too much supply. Today, there is no subprime lending and too little supply. The real estate market will hold on much better. That is a huge distinction between 2008 and today. The markets are way different and much much more able to withstand this sort of volatility. So let's look into the metrics behind that quote. First one is, look at appreciation. The 6 years prior to 2008 as compared to these most recent 6 years leading up to today, appreciation is half of what it was leading up to 2008. That means you don't have this inflated value that's more fragile and more likely to decline when it's overstated. Look at the cash out refinances. In the 3 years prior to the 2008 recession, $824 billion, almost $1 trillion, right, was pulled out of homes and spent. In these last 3 years, a quarter of that. So a lot more equity is still protected and in a home and less likely to be to have that value decline. Interest rates are at historic lows. We love that. But here's the one that I really want you to tune in on. This is the affordability index. And look at the peak. It was nearly at 900 right before the recession started. And what that means is the higher the number, the easier it is to get a loan. So right before the recession, it was at its easiest and then it came crashing down because they figured out, oh, that was probably not a great idea, that all you had to do was fog a mirror to get a loan, right? Look how far it fell. It fell down to almost 100. And that's in June of 2008. It hasn't risen out of the hundreds in 12 years. Because of that, our default rate as a country, the percentage of loans that go into foreclosure, is below 1%. If you go back 50 years, the average default rate is between 4 and 5%, depending on whether you talk to Fannie or Freddie. So as a country, it's gone from 5% to 1%, which means people are in a lot less precarious position, right? And that's because of that line you see, that lenders weren't frivolously or even unscrupulously granting loans to people that couldn't afford them. That's why we're in a better position. One of the many reasons I'm showing you, hopefully. Inventory, another great example. You heard Laurence Young talk about how we had an oversupply. Well, 8.2 months of inventory is by definition an oversupply. A balanced market is between 4 and 6 months, and we had 8. Today, we have 3.1 nationally, but here in Washington State, we're at 1.4 months. So we're half of the national average. In King County, it's even lower. That's where I'm sitting. So we have extremely low inventory levels. What that means is when there's a decline in transaction volume due to the virus, due to counties and escrow companies closing, all that kind of stuff, it can withstand. It doesn't cause this mass price reduction across the markets. When you have 8 months of inventory, sellers are dropping their price in an effort to stand out as compared to their competition, their neighbors, right? But in a limited inventory market, sellers are more willing to be patient and wait for the right buyer. They just know that there are fewer buyers. That's a healthier sort of posture, right? What can we conclude from all of this? It's really very simple, right? We are in a way better position than we were in 2007 and 8. Plain and simple, right? The economy can withstand volatility a lot more easily when it's well positioned. And we're well positioned miles ahead of 2007 and 8. And this is the reason for this video. People need to understand that so that they don't panic, so they don't clean out grocery stores and buy up all the guns and ammo that you can find at sporting goods stores and all that stuff. You need to just take a breather. We need to practice social distancing because it works. We need to take great care of our families, and we need to be a resource for our clients. Give them information that helps them feel better and less concerned about their future, and you will give them hope. That's the gift you need to give them. I hope this video was helpful. I'm just a guy selling houses up here in Seattle, but I am hopeful that we can get this information out and let people know that we're just in a dramatically different position today than we were 12 years ago. Hopefully you found it useful. If you have questions for me, certainly welcome to DM me or reach out. Again, Ed Lane, Hometown Advisor Real Estate up here in beautiful sunny Seattle, Washington. Take care.